what the Effie deals on the rise, flipping those dreams before your eyes. Listen and learn, she'll guide you through. If Effie can do it, you can effing do it too.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What the Effie, a super duper special episode of What the Effie, because today I have Nitin Daswani. Nitin, thank you for coming on my podcast.
Effie, thank you so much for having me.
Guys, I have introduced people for the first time on my podcast before, but this is the first time that I feel like, oh my God, am I so lucky? Because usually it's an even trade, but I feel like I'm so lucky because Nitin is stepping out on social media, on the stage of social media for the first time. He is debuting. This is his debut podcast, and he is going to be humongous. He's going to be super popular. You guys are going to love him. You'll see why he's going to be super popular. And I am so honored that his first appearance is on my niece's little podcast. I'm very happy. Thank you, Nitin.
What an introduction, Effie. I don't know if I can live up to all that, but there's no other podcast I'd rather have started on than yours. So I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for the kind words.
Wow. Sorry. Okay. All right. Well, I feel like I'm the lucky one for sure. So I'm going to begin by saying I met you, through Abraham Gray, who I consider a friend, a very good friend and a mentor. He guides me a lot. He's a very important person to me. And I met Nitin as his right-hand man. So right from the very beginning, I'm like, who is this young man? You know, how special must he be? You know, how is he in this coveted position? And Raz, my partner, felt similarly. You know, like, wow, what a lucky dude. I'm like, yeah, he kind of is, isn't he? Shortly after getting to know Nitin, I realized I see what Abraham sees. And actually, it's a very fair trade and in that relationship. So those of you who know me and know how much, I adore Abraham, understand what that means, right? That I feel Abraham is also very lucky, mutually lucky. That's so freaking cool. So that's how I met Nitin. Nitin, how did you meet Abraham?
Yes. So I must say that is probably one of the highest compliments I could have ever received because I look at Abraham too so highly. And he's one of my largest mentors. He's someone I look up to in and outside of business. So for you to say that means the world to me. So just want to preface with that. As far as how I know Abraham, so I've actually never not known Abraham, believe it or not. Him and my father have worked together since 1997. I was born in 2000, so I'm 25 years old. And my dad and Abraham met through the Beanie Baby business, where Abraham kind of made his big break. And also my father made his relatively big break during the time. And as I grew up, Abraham was always the uncle that lived in Atlanta that does a lot of business. And my dad and Abraham have always done business together throughout my childhood. And occasionally, Abraham would come to California where we lived at the time. And he'd come visit sometimes for personal reasons, sometimes just to have like a vacation with Donna, his wife, and his children. And then sometimes he'd come to visit my dad's businesses and locations that they had together. And so throughout that process, I always called him Uncle Avi. That's his nickname is Avi. And so I grew up calling him Uncle Avi for the longest time. And when I was 15 or 16 years old, we started talking on a little bit of a deeper level. And sometimes we get some one-on-one time where my dad would be occupied or Donna would be occupied. And we kind of sit down and talk. And during that exchange, Abraham was so curious about me, which I appreciated so much, right? Because I only heard what my dad has said of him and what I've witnessed. And I was like, man, this guy really cares about people, not just himself. And for someone at that level to care about you is such a cool thing. And so we talked and he's like, so what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to do what you and my dad do. He's like, really? He's like, what are you doing now? And I'm like, well, I was 17. I was like, I'm about to go to college. I just got accepted to USC and I'm going to go to study business. And he's like, you're going to go to school to study business? You're going to go to learn from professors that have never done the thing that you want to do? He's like, that's insane. He's like, you should drop out and move to Atlanta with me. And he said it like super passively, like if anyone's ever talked to Abraham, he says, such large picture concepts so easily. And so I was like, oh man, it kind of it's stuck in my head, definitely. But in the moment, I was like, he's probably just, maybe a figure of speech, or he just really meant that I shouldn't go to school. But I couldn't get it out of my head. So that conversation ends. He goes back to Atlanta, and a month passes, and I still have this thought in the back of my head. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna call him and just let me feel the waters. Let me see. Did he really mean that, or was he just saying that? So I called him, and I was like, hey, you had kind of briefly mentioned me kind of coming to Atlanta and seeing if I could learn from you. I kind of just wanted to know, like, did you mean that, or were you just saying that? And he was like, no, I totally meant it. Like, whenever you're ready, like, I'm ready when you are. You just come to Atlanta. That's all I needed to hear. So, it was a somewhat difficult conversation with my two first generation immigrant parents who moved to this country and wanted to raise a child that went to school, and most of my family is formally educated. But I was like, guys, I think I want to do this. So if you're serious about it, we're going to support you, but you gotta show us that you're serious. So I dropped out of school. I turned down USC, and I moved across the country to Atlanta in 2020.
Wow.
And that was when my life changed, and things have kind of gone from there to here.
Wow. What a brave, brave step.
I didn't see it as brave. I almost just felt like it was the only thing my heart really desired to do in the moment.
Uh-huh.
Like
Uh-huh.
school didn't appeal to me in that regard. Like I did okay in school, but I did it because I had to. I didn't do it because I felt like, an aptitude or my self drive to accomplish it. I was really just doing it for my parents and so that, my future was okay. But I didn't really feel passion towards it. But when Abraham gave me or subtly hinted at the opportunity, that motivated me beyond anything else I'd ever heard before.
Trust me, I understand. I do completely understand that about Abraham and about the opportunity. Still, though, the concept of, leaving California and moving to Atlanta, it's a big step.
Yeah, yeah, and, he made it so easy like, he was like, "You could live in my house," and, I was there for probably 3 or 4 months, and there was a day that came where I called my dad, and I was like, "Hey, dad, yeah, I'm not gonna be coming back here, and I wanna stay here for the long haul," and, but he made it so easy and kind of mitigated a lot of the fears that I had going into it. As much credit as I'd like to take for how brave it was, I also feel like I have to give all the credit to him for making it possible and doing it in the way that he did it.
Wow. So that brings you into Atlanta. Um, how did you start learning from him, and what did you start doing at the beginning? Walk us through your journey in Atlanta, because for those of you who don't know, you're going to hear what he's been doing. It's pretty impressive. So
Yeah,
talk to us.
so initially, I just wanted to learn, and there really was no game plan as far as what my role would be eventually, how I would fit into anything. So for the first few months, I really just shadowed him, and I mean shadowed him. I woke up, I slept, and we lived in the same house, right? I lived with him. So as the moment that we got up, I shadowed him at every location that he went to. And at the time, most of his time was being occupied by real estate. He was buying a house every single day. It was when the market was slightly better than it is
Right.
currently. Back then, he'd also go to every house that he was buying. That quickly changed, but he was going to every house that he was buying. So me and him had hours together on in the car driving to these houses. Me seeing how he's inspecting these homes. Me seeing how he's kind of just generally dealing through that. As everybody knows, even though I say he was primarily doing real estate, for most people that mean okay, then he's barely doing anything else. That means primarily doing real estate, but also owning a dozen and a half other businesses simultaneously that he's working on. And I just try my mindset at that time was I don't know what value I can provide right now. I didn't ask him, "Hey, what value can I provide you?" But the thing that I wanted to do was I have such unique access to him. I'm going to be spending so many hours with him. If I can emulate his thought process in every aspect, like kind of understand fundamentally, okay, where does his brain go? How is he making decisions? What type of things is he thinking about? And I figured eventually if I was able to emulate that well enough, that I'd build a level of trust with him to where he would allow me to make decisions because he just knows that we think similarly enough for me to make those decisions. So the first few months was really just that. It was me absorbing and trying to take in as much as I possibly could. And honestly, I think I was super lucky because I feel like I naturally kind of gravitated towards his thought process in a lot of things. And so it felt somewhat natural to me to kind of emulate some of the things that he was doing. And I've always been entrepreneurial. Like I started selling stuff and reselling things on eBay and online since I was 12 years old. So I had an entrepreneurial spirit. I feel like I was pretty like minded to him. Obviously didn't know nearly not even a fraction of the amount that he knew. Yeah, so that was my goal when I first came, was really just emulating that. So that quickly shifted to him giving me my first opportunity. And that opportunity basically came in the form of the Gray Method, which was an educational course where he taught people how to buy and sell businesses. And so I did all the
That's right.
logistics of it.
I I remember hearing about that. It was I wish I had known him during then, but I had heard about the gray method and I was like, why isn't he still doing it? He's got to be doing and I know, but tell us the story. Tell us how you went from that.
Yeah, so he had spent the last 2 or 3 years kind of curating all of his knowledge into a presentation that he would basically have over a 3-day mastermind. And so, I was actually a guinea pig in that course. So he was teaching us, me alongside 2 other people during that time. We would meet up on a weekly basis, and we would basically learn as much as we could and got basically one-on-one access with him within this course. So through that, he kind of refined that course, and I asked a ton of questions. I think, we all asked a lot of questions that were in there. And eventually he was like, hey, I see like you're really engaged within this. You really care about this. He's like, why don't you help me refine it? Put the slides together, maybe help with the presentation, help with throwing the event, doing all the logistics for it. And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. So I did that and the Gray Method occurred. It was a big success. We filled out the room and, he had a great turnout. And right before we had actually had the event, he was like, "Hey, you've been learning all this. Like, how about we just buy something together?" And I was like, "That would be amazing." And so the first opportunity was a roll it up ice cream shop who one of the other people in the one-on-one mastermind actually found and sourced. And we basically bought this ice cream shop that was a previous Baskin Robbins location,
Okay.
rebranded it, and turned it into a roll it up ice cream, which is basically like that concept where you pour liquid on a cold metal surface and you roll it into this kind of unique novelty ice cream.
Yeah, I've heard that as stone, um,
A Cold Stone is it? Yeah, Cold
cold
Stone.
stone. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So was it a new concept with that store or had he already had it? Because I know Abraham must have had ideas when he was in the womb because he has so
Sure.
many ideas and so many businesses. Where did that change come from, to flip it?
So yeah, so with a lot of the concepts that we'll do that came later down the road with me involved within them, but is that we'll do a ton of market research outside of the United States and
Oh,
we'll see what trends are growing. This one had already kind of reached the United States, but wasn't that like prominent at the time. And what he had saw was, man, the margin compared to normal ice cream is so much higher because there's a novelty element of having to be able to like roll up that ice cream and you kind of put it in a cool Instagrammable display. And so he was like, man, this is a really cool concept. Doesn't seem like it's that difficult to execute. I think it would do great. And, you went to a whole bunch of other locations, did the market research, saw how much they were charging per cup, how much they were likely selling an hour. He figured the revenue for the month and figured, hey, this is a winning concept. So at the exact same time, a Baskin Robbins, someone was retiring from a Baskin Robbins location. What he was saying was, okay, this is already a location that's in a prime area of Atlanta. People already know it as an ice cream shop. Why don't we just buy it so that we can take a lot of that customer base? And it has a lot of the things we already need. It has a freezer in the back. It has a display. It was kind of already set up in an ice cream shop formation. He's like, all it would take is for us to buy a couple of those like cooler tables, like those cooler units that you'd use to make the ice cream, repaint, rebrand, and then we could launch. And so that was what his thought was within it.
that's
And my
smart.
yeah, no, it was a great idea. And my role within that was the execution of turning it into a real location. And so I basically sourced all the material. I figured out, a lot of the SOPs, a lot of the things and process in place, and then the other person was to run it. And, eventually it turned out to not, be lucrative for whatever other reason, but we ended up
Mhm.
actually selling that business. But it was such an amazing learning experience during that time.
How long
It
did
was
he
just
did you
great.
guys own it for?
That was over a year and a half. Yeah, that was over a year and a half.
Yeah, that must have been really a great experience. Why did you
So in a nutshell, basically my role was the startup element of it. And Abraham is super high level, he has so many things going on. So the other role of that is an operator. And at the time our other operator was going through a whole bunch of other circumstances and didn't feel like he was the role. And so that operator ended up not being able to put enough time to do what the business required it to do at the time. So in a nutshell, that was really the core reason. Conceptually and everything else, it was a great concept.
I think that must have been very exciting for you.
It was the greatest learning experience. It also wasn't all rainbows and sunshines, and I think that's
Yes.
also a great thing. I think starting off with something that does extremely well is almost like, winning at the casino for the first time. It's a little bit it's a misconception, like, there's a lot of,
Yep.
issues and heartaches that come with business in general and learning things, and there's learning curves, so, not everything is a winner, and Abraham will be the first to admit
Yeah,
that
yeah. Oh,
he has
trust
tons
me,
of
it did
losses.
yes, yes, that's the thing. The perseverance and the character of not giving up and being willing to roll with it and pivot and move forward and take a look and, you know, all of that. If you can't do that, you're not an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. So
So
that was
tell
my
us
that was my baby
first.
step into business.
Wow. And how did it go once you did the first gray method? Did you do another one? Because I know
Yeah,
tell me about it because I know I met him with Deal or No Deal. No, excuse me, Deal Maker Weekend. That was where
yes.
I met him.
So we continue to do gray methods. I believe we did a total of 3
Nice.
until Abraham had another genius idea of, "Hey, let's partner with someone that's teaching a similar thing." And we can now have 2 people that are extremely experienced teach a course like this, and that's where we ran into Carl Allen, or that's where I first got introduced to him. However, Abraham had known him for many, many years. And Carl had came to one of our gray methods, and Carl was like, "Man, this is awesome. Like, Abraham is really doing a great job of teaching it." And Carl actually does long-term mentorships where he's actually able to like hold hands, or we were doing a 3-day weekend. So Abraham's like, "Hey, why don't we partner up to give people the ability and the resource to have someone that will actually take them through the entire process, maybe hold their hands and have a little more of an intimate experience than I'll be able to in 3 days." And that's when Gray Method converted to Dealmaker Weekend. And I think that is also when I felt like I had bigger responsibility because what that turned into was it's one thing to do a local event in Atlanta with a room of 100. It's a different thing to do one in a different state that you're not located in, find a venue, fill it to 300 people, figure out all the venues, stay within budgets, figure out all the AV situations. So then it becomes a lot bigger of an ordeal. But that's also when I felt like my bandwidth grew tremendously. So it was a big stepping stone in my journey because it felt like, okay, I'm doing these like pretty small things. I feel like I'm doing them pretty well. I have all my bases covered. And then I was given this huge task that I was honored by because he felt like I was capable of doing it. And that's when I really started expanding and realizing, oh man, I could do a lot more than I initially anticipated I could.
So I'm trying to remember. I forgotten the name of Carl's mentorship.
A protege.
Yeah, protege. Because there are a number of people I know that are in protege. So yeah, I get it. And I'm quite sure that that might have been one of the first times I met you in person.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, yeah, because you were running the whole camera crew and all the equipment. Oh, and I remember when the speaker left and he left his laptop, and I
Yep.
grabbed it and started screaming on the mic, "Where is this guy going?" Everybody's looking at me. I was like, "Oops." But he came back and was like, "Oh, thank God, thank you." I was like, "Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't know where you," because he'd left. Caught him at the door, sort of thing. So yeah, I do remember that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So now you've got experience in what he's doing in real estate and putting on events to a certain degree and trainings. Was he lending at that point?
So he's been lending for 20 or 30 years,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
really,
yeah.
but it's been his own funds. So at that time, it was strictly all of his own money. We didn't take investor capital. I think he maybe had taken, like he had some investors at the time, but primarily he was just doing that on his own. But it wasn't another like full venture that he had gotten into just yet.
Okay. Cool. Now bring us a little bit up to date on what do you have your fingers in,
Sure.
and what you are doing at this time?
Absolutely. So we talked about, the ice cream location. We talked about the Gray Method. We talked about Deal Maker Weekend. A little past that, there was Putt Nation. There is Putt Nation. I still am an owner of it. And that was
Congratulations.
thank you so much. And that was a business that my dad, Abraham, and myself were involved in.
Oh my God.
And it was the coolest experience. That I think is the single thing I learned the most from in business because that was just a different level of business. It was a $3 million location that we
Wow.
started from absolute scratch. Nothing existed. It was our first time dwelling into food and beverage with a full bar and full restaurant and having that sort of budget to work with. It was the biggest learning curve. We're also past COVID and there's a ton of supply chain issues and basically everything that could have been difficult to run with. I think Abraham and my dad would admit it was the single most difficult brick and mortar location either of them had ever been a part in. So
Wow.
I got an extremely unique experience because it was extremely difficult. It was an extremely hard process. Everything went over budget. Like 3 million wasn't our budget. It was significantly less. Maybe a third of that was our budget.
Wow.
And our timeline tripled. So, everything real that business was such a difficult thing to deal with.
What was I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what was it
No.
like to be also dealing with your dad?
It
Was
was
this
a
the
it was
first
a
time you were
very
doing business with him?
Yes. So that was the first time I ever did business with my dad. And it's interesting because Abraham and him have such a different business acumen. My dad is very customer service based and user experience based. Like my dad loves to be on the floor. My dad loves to be talking and interacting with guests and seeing their reactions. And Abraham does too, but I think Abraham is more so from a macro perspective because he's doing so many things at one time that he wants to implement his staff to be able to do that stuff. However, he's not physically like going to be in location to make that happen. So I learned a lot from my dad during that time. I also think that it gives you such a unique perspective. And my dad is one of my biggest, I always say Abraham is one of my biggest mentors, and so is my father. And that's why I don't give them either the title because they truly have both taught me an immense amount about life, business, and everything else. So no, it was an amazing experience. I mean, I think there's always some additional element when you're working with like family that close. And, partners have disputes and things they may not agree on or see eye to eye on. And, I am inexperienced. And I think at the time I was a little younger than I am now. And I'd probably admit that there was things that I was adamant on that I was wrong about. So I uh
Well,
I
you still
learned a
gotta
lot
be
in that
adamant,
aspect too.
because they might not take you seriously if you're not.
Yeah, so it was a humbling experience as well as an informative experience of, how to deal with those circumstances. So I learned a lot from it in many regards, but that was definitely the biggest and gruesome is the only word I can describe it as. Fast forward, it's doing extremely well. We have a great staff in place. It's
Oh,
relatively
nice.
passive for all the partners involved. It brings joy to a lot of people. We're actually like the highest reviewed location in our entire county.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have
Nice.
like around 4,500 reviews at 4.9 star. All that credit I will give to my dad because he's really, really good at honing in the customer experience. And it was an amazing thing to watch and see how well he does at that.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Do you see yourself as how do you see yourself? You're talking about your dad being customer centric and it's all about the experience of the customer. Are you in the front lines that way? Do you see yourself in the front lines or do you see yourself as an operator?
It's funny. I actually feel like I've gotten so many elements of both. Like, I think one of the things that I pride myself on is being extremely responsive. If someone calls me, I try to answer as close to the first ring as possible. If someone emails me, I try to respond as quickly as I possibly can. It gets more difficult as more volume comes. However, it's funny, like, I look at that and I didn't realize where that stems from. But right when you bring that up, I'm like, man, I really do bring like that customer experience element that my father's kind of instilled within me. And I think it's brought me to a point where I could be a higher level operator. And then on Abraham's regard is, like the type of operation that we're doing, and we'll get into the what I'm currently involved in. I mean, we're getting like hundreds of inquiries a day. And so it's a lot to manage. But as opposed to just like being really cold and managing it just to get to the volume, which Abraham is not like that either.
Right.
But my dad has really instilled within me like a personal touch. So I would like to say that I have elements of both of them in what I do.
I see it. I see it,
Oh,
but I was
thank you.
wondering how you see yourself because you are also extremely strong in systems and operations and things of that sort. That I'm like, wow, you know, I don't necessarily have both. I'm definitely customer oriented, more on the front, but thank God that I have a partner who excels at the back end. So, I understand that you are one of the people that fall into both. And that's really
Try my
nice.
best to. I try my best to.
Yeah. You're extremely responsive, as is Abraham. Obviously, you're learning from that for sure. So, talk to me a little bit about where you are now, but I also want you to fit in. Can I say her name?
Oh yeah, please.
Okay. It's Julian, right?
Yeah, Julianne.
Julianne. Okay. At
Yes.
one point, I would like you to explain the relationship of you and Julianne. Like, what is it? And
Yeah,
how
sure.
did it come to be? But also bring us to where closer to what you're into now.
Absolutely. So Julianne is my girlfriend of 5 years, and I started
5
dating her.
years? So it was long distance?
Yes. So this is the entire story. So I moved to Atlanta, um, in I believe late 2020, early 21. Sorry about that. Early 21, January of 2021. And Julianne and I started dating early in 2020 during the pandemic in California. Me and
You
Abraham had this
were
conversation.
babies.
We
You were
were,
babies. You were teenage
we were.
sweethearts.
We were, and it was my first serious girlfriend, my first girlfriend, period. Keep in mind, and I'm the same for her. We met in we've known each other for years. We've gone to school together for years, but got really close during the pandemic, and so we started dating in early 2020. Late 2020 is when the conversation with Abraham is occurring, and I make the difficult decision. And I tell Julianne, she's kind of aware. She's been aware that this has been, we didn't start dating with her not knowing that this may occur. We kind of talked about it and she knew, okay, like, I'm just having a great time. We're getting close to one another. Is it the smartest thing in the world? Probably not, knowing that you may or may not leave, but we'll figure it out as the time comes. So the time came and she's like, let's just see what we can do. Neither of us feel comfortable with just ending this relationship we built. So let's just see where it goes. Let's do long distance for a little while. So for the first year, we did long distance. It was extremely difficult and challenging time, not only because of the long distance, but also because the time change. I'm 3 hours ahead. And also, I'm working probably at that time, maybe like 90 hours a week. And all the things that we just talked about, there's actually a couple that we've missed, but the ice cream business, Putt Nation, Gray Method, Dealmaker Weekend, the content company, Content Lab, that was all happening to me relatively simultaneously. It wasn't like a start and a stop and a start and a stop. Everything was operating at one time. And so
And I'm sure Abraham was going easy on you to some degree.
he probably was. He probably was. So it was a lot to handle and it felt overwhelming. And during that time, all Julianne did was just support me through that. And eventually it kind of came to the point where we were like, hey, where do we want to be? And she's like, you know what? Like, you're so career driven. I want to support you within this. And I'm okay with having a life experience of moving outside of my home. So, early 2020 to late 2021, she decides to move across the country and we live together. So we went from barely dating as first time girlfriend boyfriend to long distance to immediately moving in with one another.
Wow.
And it was an
Now that's
extremely
brave on both your end.
that definitely was. That one I will say, moving across the country to do this and drop out of college, it is what it is. Doing that was brave. And immediately we were extremely compatible. And like, we had very little issues except for the fact that now instead of working the 80, 90 hours I was, now things are picking up the pace and now I'm working 100 hours, 105 hours. I'm sleeping, all the time that I'm at home is I'm sleeping and she's working a standard 9 to 5 job and we don't see each other. And she puts up with me doing that for a year and a half.
Wow.
And one day she's like, I don't see you. Like I moved here for you. I have no friends here. I have no
Yeah, I was gonna
family
say,
here.
how like, I don't know what she was doing. What was she doing working? Can I ask or not?
Yeah, so she was a nanny for a family. So like Julianne's like, it's so funny and I'd love to talk about it. Is Julianne and I are so opposites in so many regards, but we fit each other so well because she's so family oriented. She's like she loves and enjoys the little things in life. She loves the holidays and the Christmas spirit. She'll see a leaf fall from a tree and she's like, "Oh my God, it's fall time!" And like she's like, "It really reminds me to enjoy the small things in life." And she has only ever wanted to be a mom. She's
Oh,
very passionate about children. She loves kids. So at the time, she was working as a school teacher, eventually
really?
pivoting, yep, and eventually pivoting into like a nanny for affluent families. So that's a really hard job to make any friends at because you're dealing with
Yes.
children. You're not really seeing that many adults during a given day. So not only was she not able to develop her own relationships, she didn't have the only person that she knew here. And so I say all that to say that the outcome of that was basically us sitting down and at some point me just saying, "I'm so sorry that this is the circumstance. I came here in hopes that this was gonna last a certain period of time and that eventually things would settle and I'd be more established." At the same time, I felt like I had a shot clock on me and that was a difficult moment for me. But I look at her perspective and I'm like, "I'm so sorry I put you through that." And at some point I was like, you know what? It may be best. I'm so committed to this now. I'm so far in. When I say I'm going to do something to other people and I make those commitments, I have to follow through. And I don't think it's fair for you to be here and me not allow you to be happy. And so she's like, we're both heartbroken about it. Like, it wasn't because we didn't care. It wasn't because it was just the fact that I didn't have the time for myself or for her. She eventually went back to California. And that was the moment that my life changed because in that moment, I was like, I started hitting a stride during that time. Like I started doing a little bit better than I'd done previously. A lot of things are going well. And I was the least happy I'd ever been. And I was like, there is zero thing that I can achieve in this moment that allows that. It will never trump the feeling of me not
It's
having
not
her here.
okay. It's
It's
not
not
okay.
okay. And I'm like, I could accomplish 100 times what I did during that moment, and I still yet to feel like I wasn't fulfilled. And at that moment, I was like, all right, I have to take a step back. And so, I let some of the businesses go, like, the ice cream shop, a couple of the other ones. I was like, you know what, not let them go as in the sense of give them up, but like hand them off over to my partners or just kind of step back in involvement. Put Nation was the last one that I was really heavily involved in. And I was like, you know what, let me take a step back, let me go back to California and let me reset for a second. Let me just see what I want to do. And during that time, I'd also have some of my own endeavors that were going to take place in California that were less involved than these ones here. So I went back and me and Julianne moved back in together. We started rekindling our relationship and it was at that time I'd been there for about 6 months. It was a friend's wedding here in Georgia. So I go back to the friend's wedding and I'm seated at the table with Abraham because obviously we knew each other. So that's how they seated us at the wedding. And Abraham was like, Nitin, like I'm doing this lending stuff and I'm still doing real estate and I want to loosen up my time. Like I truly want to be less involved in some of the things that I'm doing. I want to be able to travel more. I want to be able to spend time with my kids and Donna more. I want to be able to go to jujitsu more often. And there's no one I trust. And I know that it's capable as much as you. And it meant a lot to me, like that he said that. And initially I was concerned because I was like, what I don't want to do is I just moved back to show my girlfriend that I'm so committed to the fact that I'm not going to do what I did before. And now I have this great opportunity where I may have to do what I did before. And so I talked to Abraham and I was like, let me come to the office. Let me see what this entails. And I'm like, I can't lie to you. I have to set boundaries here. Like there's certain things that I'm absolutely going to do. My priority is making sure I do a good job at everything that I touch. That's my absolute goal, but not at the cost of it being unsustainable. Because what that does is two things. It makes it unsustainable for me to be happy. And then what that also does is make my work worse, inevitably. As
Yep.
much as you try to separate the two things, they're naturally going to
Yep.
collide at some point in time. And I don't want to do that. And Abraham was so like open here, like willing to hear it. And he was like, absolutely. I think this is actually a great fit. And I'm more than happy to, I think that'll work here. So I was like, okay.
How are you guys gonna approach it if he's wanting to back up a bit and get more time, which he well deserves because he's doing so much, and you also want to find balance in your life. How did you guys approach that? Like, I mean, it's
Yeah.
one thing to say it, um, you know, in theory and emotionally to be on the same page, but in real facts, how did you make it happen?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So with all the other things that I had done previously, they weren't hours. Like it wasn't like, oh, this is operating from 9 in the morning to 12 at night. It was more so, we got to get all this stuff done. And Putt Nation, for example, was open till 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. If there's issues, that those have to be resolved. You're on call. You have to have the ability to address those issues. And that was what it was like with all the things that I was involved in. And there were 5 things simultaneously. So if one wasn't calling me, it was another, and I was torn in so many directions. With this, it was more so of a singular focus, right? Like, okay, the private money lending and real estate. And naturally, those things kind of fall within hours of operations for title companies, for banks, for me to be able to send and receive wires. So if those people aren't opening, it's kind of hard to be able to continue to do stuff. Like, of course, there is hours of work that is outside of those 2 things. However, for the most part, the business naturally confines itself within that time.
Yeah.
Everything else that I'd ever done was not that way. I don't mind
Interesting.
working, I don't mind working longer than normal hours. I have
Mhm.
0 I'm
Well, I'm
actually
sure you probably still do. It's just that it
and I
can't keep
enjoy it.
going 100%.
Exactly, but now at least I know, okay, even on a late day, I'll be home at 8. On a
That
late day
is pretty late.
before, I'll be home at 12. So, I have my nights, the weekends are a lot less those businesses thrived on the weekends previously. A
Yeah.
lot of the times on the weekends, I'd be traveling for shoots for our content company, or, I would be on location for Putt Nation or Roll It Up, and all those businesses are going really late on the weekends. So, I had no weekends, no nights almost ever. Where now, even though I'm working, a decent amount of hours, it's confined and I have weekends and the ability to do it. Now, so that's really how we structured it. Is Abraham was like, hey, let's just set a relatively set in stone schedule, right? Like for the most part, I come in at 9 in the morning and I try to leave around 6:30, 7 on most days. But that for me was like the most balanced thing I've had in my adult life. So that sounded amazing. It's worked out to be incredible. And as far as Abraham being able to take a step back, the way that I focus, and you and Raz shadowed me at the office. The way that I think about it is the moment I step into that office to the moment I leave, my goal is to get as much as I possibly can done. And I set a rule for myself. I don't leave until they are done because my work trumps whatever other thing that I've determined. So I really fill every minute of that day. I don't take a
Yes.
lunch break.
Yes.
I try not to go to the restroom. I actually don't eat lunch. I work through the day as best as I possibly can. I enjoy that. Like, I love that feeling of constantly going. I think Abraham is a similar way. So I feel like even though I'm working those hours, it feels like I'm accomplishing a lot more during that time.
Interesting. Very interesting. And tell us about Julianne. Where is she?
Yeah, so Julianne, so the last part of where I'd kind of left on her was I gotten that offer from Abraham. And I'm like, the first thought when this whole conversation is happening is, how am I going to tell her this? Keep in mind, our family, like besides my dad who's moved here, but my mom, my sisters, my nephews, her parents, her siblings, her friends, they all live in California. So it was a fact of having to leave home and have nobody here. And now we just went back and now we've been fulfilled by all these family and friends around us. So I was like, man, like I just gave her a taste of what this would be like. And now I'm about to ask her to do it again. And this is, I think, like the biggest point in our relationship and is the thing that solidified it immediately. I told it to her and she was like, she obviously was taken back and was, had like, an hour or 2 of really trying to process what I was saying. Next day, we had a conversation and it starts with saying, I believe you. Because the first thing I said was, I'm going to set my hours, I'm going to set my priorities. What happened before will never happen again. That's hard to believe when she knows the way that I work. Like, I'm a workaholic, I enjoy this. I wanna dedicate my life to accomplishing something, and she just said, "I believe you. I believe you, and let's do it." And we moved, and she left the family again. She put her full faith in me, and it was at that moment that I was like, you can't that doesn't come often, you know? Like, she had
Yes.
everything to lose and very little to gain, except for the fact that she was just gonna trust me. You
Yeah.
know?
Well,
And,
it's not little to gain because obviously you guys had the relationship of being first sweethearts and then
for sure.
growing and then going through some, difficulty and loneliness and wanting to be back around and get more balance. So it's not that she wasn't there was a lot to be gained because your roots are solid. The roots
Sure.
have been laid. And for you to be as upfront as you are with her, and for you guys to be going, as far back as you have, even though you're young, um, I can see where she would have seen this as a surprise or whatever, but a deepening of the relationship and a natural growth. Either that or it's not. It's done.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But
Definitely.
there were a lot of
Yeah,
positive things that would be coming out of.
absolutely, absolutely. As long as I said was true. Which honestly, once she committed to me, I made a promise to myself that, like I always said that everything, my career trumped everything else. My focus on accomplishing something and doing what I said I would do trumps everything else. But when she did that, it changed everything. And now what trumps everything else was me fulfilling the promise I made to her, which was just beyond me having enough time for her. It was me having enough time for me. I mean, I wasn't really taking care of myself.
So when did she move back to Atlanta? When did you guys move there for the second time?
So I moved here in October of last year, so exactly a year
Mhm.
from now, and
Okay.
she moved the first week of February of last year.
And am I correct in remembering that you also have your own home now?
So we're under contract. We're still working out the details, but hopefully that comes to fruition. But yes, that will be hopefully be in the near future.
That's exciting.
Yes, it is. We're
Very
super excited
exciting.
about it.
So how are the challenges of keeping to that?
I mean, there's some give and take. Like, of course, there's times where it doesn't always work with that schedule. I think more so, I have a framework of how I manage and balance our lives. So, we have a date night every week. We have a certain amount of days where neither of us are committed to doing anything else. But there are also weekdays where we're both committed to doing something else intentionally. I love to do jujitsu. I now work out 5 days a week. And
Yeah.
during those times, she also has other activities, whether it be random things that she wants to do, whether it be grocery shopping or her exercising or her going to a dance class or her hanging out with her friends. Whatever time I have to balance my other things, she also has. And
Okay.
then we have our intentional date nights where we're both making sure that this time is super intentional, and then on the weekends, we try to leave it as open as possible and hang out with
Good.
friends once a week.
Good.
So as far as our personal lives go, we kind of have quotas that we need to hit. Now, are there weeks where we can't hit every single one? Of course, but we really try to stick to it as best as we possibly can. The other element of that is being able to go back home when we want. For me, it's a little more difficult because I really like to be in the office. But for her, I always tell her, like, I never want you to feel homesick. I want you to feel like you have the ability to have flexibility because we moved here to be able to have a well balanced life. So it's also making sure that she's going home often enough to see her family or flying her family out here, flying some of
Nice.
my family out here. So I've really prioritized us always having things to look forward to, stuff to do, making sure that there's not too much time where neither of us are left alone for long enough, and that we still have time to do what we want to do for ourselves as well. So that's really how I balanced my personal aspect of my life.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Is Julianne working?
She is. So she is a nanny for an affluent family because like I said, she loves
You
children.
enjoyed it enough.
Yeah, she really really loves children.
Well, yeah, I love them too. And you know what? When I was a kid, the most important thing I wanted to do was to be a mom,
Yeah.
just like Julianne. And my degree was in education, so I did teach for a couple of years before I realized, nah, I love teaching, but I got to do it when I retire because teachers don't make money. So I didn't do it until I moved back to Vancouver, and many, many, many decades, thousands of years later. But
Yeah.
I did say to myself, I can't go any further without getting teaching out of my system.
Yeah.
So I did teaching of 16 to 72-year olds for
Oh, wow.
ESL in Vancouver. It was a hoot. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It was so much fun.
That's awesome.
But I understand. I kind of hadn't thought about this, but I made a mistake in thinking that the best thing in the world would be to be a mother. Because although I did think it was the best thing in the world, the real best thing is to be a grandmother.
Yeah, yeah. Because you can clock out just a little bit more.
My God, not just clock out, but I can spoil her. I mean, it's just so funny. the things that I would like. This is a strange little thing, but my kids didn't eat in the car. I mean, when they were real young, they had the bottle. Okay, if I was driving, they had the bottle, but
Sure.
no chips, no cheesies, no snacks, nothing. Well, with Sammy, the other day, I was like, "Oh my God, where did those big fingerprints come all over my car?" And then I said, "Oh, I know." And she says, "Oh, sorry," and she put stickers on my no, and then she's trying to get them off, and she goes, "Oh, sorry, Grandma." It's okay. And I'm thinking, "Man, I never would have been that carefree as a mom." I love the experience, but it's even more fun as a grandma.
Yeah. No, it
It
sounds it. It sounds it.
it absolutely is. So, I have a couple of questions
Sure.
that, some people have said they would like to ask, and one of them is, let me see, what do I wanna take them as? Okay, so you kinda answered it. How many hours a week do you work? About.
Yeah, so I work about 9 to 6:30, which is about 9.5 hours, and I do that 5 days a week. So that's my average week. I
Okay.
will say there is 2 days out of the month that I'm working significantly more than that, and that's the foreclosure auction days because 'cause I'm up at 3 AM. I'll
Wow.
work up until 7 PM, and then that usually coincides with paying all of our investors, so that's like a full day as well. So that's usually around like a 7 AM to a 7 PM as well. So besides those 2 days every month, every other day is a calm and nice 9 to 6:30.
How do you like doing the auctions? I'm dying to learn about them.
I love it. I mean, so there's a part of me that really enjoys like the hustle culture. Like I really love the feeling of, man, this is hard, tedious work. Like I love that feeling. And that day gives it to me because I'm like sleep deprived. It's a ton of work to do ahead of time. But the fulfillment of once it's all said and done, and then we do all the due diligence, and it results in us buying properties that have better spreads than most of the ones that we buy on a normal basis. It's such a fulfilling and cool thing. So I love it. It's one of my favorite things that I do.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because I gotta figure out how I'm gonna learn about it. Hint, hint.
You already know that is whatever you need to know will help.
The chase to identify it and to actually chase it down and do the diligence and then hold your breath. All of that is very enticing.
It's cool, and what I'd love to invite you to is whenever you're in Atlanta, I'd love for you to coordinate the trip to where you're actually there on the first Tuesday of the month. So you could be there when we're bidding on them, because it's cool. From 9 AM is start time, and it usually ends around 3. Those hours are literally just it feels like the stock market exchange where, like, I have 3 huge screens that we're all staring at. It has 21 tabs open, and we're simultaneously bidding on an auction. You see $1 million in the corner, and as you buy something, the balance decreases. It's like a video game in real life. It really is.
That is super, super. And I may very well take you up on that. I think that would be really, really cool. You already said you love that the most. What do you love second most? Or what would you say is the second most interesting thing for you?
So interesting is everything. I'm very, very engaged with everything that I do. I love what I do. But I'd say, like, if I had to have a favorite component, foreclosures are amazing, but my real favorite component is payment day, but not for the reason why people think that it is. So we pay all our investors. I paid you for a very long time. And one of the things that that day does for me personally is because I send every single one manually. I'm focusing on the amount and I'm sending it to the person. And that humanizes everything that I do, and that's the impact moment for me. Because what that does is that when I click that button and it's sent to whoever it's sent to, is this is a person that not only has faith and trust in Abraham and what I'm doing and what we're doing here, but now, like, we're able to give to them and the ability to have, like, safe passive returns, and that's, like, real money for a lot of like, that's for people,
It's
that's, like,
huge.
their retirement funds,
I've been
their
missing that. I've been missing that. So I think it might be time to invest again. But, it is really cool to know that that is coming in and that it's so dependable. So I think, like, on the receiving end, it is very important. And you're not underestimating the importance of it, the impact of it.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's just a moment that because it's so easy to be consumed by the emails, the calls, the texts, and just make the machine continue to work. But in a moment like that, when your single focus is to, pay the people that you've promised and everything that we do, it to me, it just makes me remember, like, when I sent them, if I ever saw your name and I was, like, sending it to Effie, I really felt that I was sending it to you. It wasn't just another name that I was sending it to, and that moment, makes everything that we do so much more worth it. Like we love what we do. We're so engaged within it. We love communicating with everyone we communicate with. But the impact of being able to do that for people is such a beautiful thing. And it's something that I'm so grateful to be able to do.
I'm glad that you enjoy it. I'm glad you enjoy it because it comes across. It comes across. So
Thank you.
and it is really appreciated. So that's great that on both sides it feels that way for sure. What is your why? Like
Yeah,
I
that's
understand that you know it was a better option than going to school because I have to agree, even though you know my daughter went to got her degree, and I was quite disappointed with my son for a bit when he dropped out. And I worked in the higher education system, and their dad went through the Harvard Business School. I believe in education, but at the same time, I fully agree with what Abraham said. The best way to learn business isn't through the Harvard Business School because you don't get
right.
into the Harvard Business School if you haven't done the work in the trenches. So by actually going and learning, I think it's a great way, but normally there's a reason you're doing it. What it is you're doing in life. What is yours?
Yeah, I think that's really shifted over the years. It's something that I still ask myself on a regular basis. I'll tell you initially it was way more vain than I'd like to admit. You know, I just wanted to be able to do something at a large scale. Like when I was in high school, I really just wanted to I really wanted to fit the phenotype of what people describe as successful. That was initially my why. I quickly grew out of that as I was like, man, it's not as easy as it may seem, and that won't carry you nearly as far as you need to go to be able to actually go on the other side of success. And what that turned into was honestly finding the reasons why through what I'm doing. Like, for example, like I mentioned the days I pay investors, because that's how I really think about it. And that's what motivates me. Like, like I love answering emails, and I love talking to people, but humanizing it in a way that resonates with me and saying, like, this is a huge impact on people's lives. Like, that's my current why. And through Putt Nation was, man, like, would it be so amazing? Like, I grew up in a small town in California, and we had a
Where did you
local
grow up?
so it's a small town called Moore Park. It's in Ventura County. It's about
Oh,
45 minutes away from LA. So, but it was a very small and community-driven town, and there was one bowling alley that all of the kids would come and meet up with and say, "Hey, do you guys wanna go to Harley's on Thursday after school?" And we'd all meet there. As Putt Nation was developing, I was like, "I would love to build a place like that." And that was my why. And that's what carried me through. And I was like, imagine the impact that you'll have on people in that community. And, in turn, it'll make you successful because it's a monetary endeavor, of course. The truth of the matter is you're impacting people's lives. It's a time and experience. It's a thing that people are gonna be able to share with their families and friends and have a great time with. So I've always just tried to find the my why in the element of what I'm doing and the impact that it's having on others. Like that's really what it is. And on the flip of that, the reason that I strive to be successful and have strive to do that is to honestly have that impact on my family. Like I think being able to give a life to people around you is such a beautiful thing, or give moments and things that you can do, and the freedom and the ability to not worry. What was a big deal for me as well on the opposite inverse of that. So that's really why I'm motivated
even
to
though
continue doing what I do.
you didn't as a youngster you weren't wanting, even though you weren't wanting, that is a driving factor.
Yeah, yeah. So I think even more so, at least for me at that time, was I wanted to be able to show my gratitude through that. Like I wasn't wanting, I'll never be able to say that I came from an environment like Abraham's, which he has an amazing story. But what I can say is that I had two loving parents that were able to provide for me and beyond just the necessities of life. And I was so grateful for it. And as I became older, the thing that I wanted to do was not just continue to take and feel like I was entitled to something like that. But I wanted to be able to like leave the next generation more than I was given, regardless of what that means. I want to be able to leave more than I was given. I don't wanna feel like I was living this life selfishly through the merits of somebody else before me, and I try to live my life that way. I try to behave that way. I try to carry myself that way, and everything that I do is honestly the underlying reason is so that I feel like I'm living a fulfilled life, which is being able to provide for people ahead of me and not just consuming from the people behind me.
Isn't it interesting how satisfying that can be?
Yeah, I mean,
You're thinking about your unborn children
yeah,
and your grandchildren and such. You know, you're thinking about things you don't have to be thinking about. You're 25. A lot of 25-year-olds are like all about me.
Yeah. I honestly like all that credit is given to my parents because truthfully, that's how they were towards me. And I feel like that's the reason why I was able to live the childhood that I lived is like my father didn't have me till he was 40. It was extremely intentional. It was because he wanted to be somewhere at a certain place before he did something that brought another life into this world, right? And I looked at that and I had so much respect towards that. And I was like, the last thing I want to do is be ungrateful for that and just be like, okay, perfect. Now let me just live my life frivolously and let me just consume whatever I want to and do whatever I want to. And I didn't
Yeah,
want to do that,
yeah, yeah.
And so,
Because it's not very, it is very self-centered and juvenile. I mean, my grandbaby is 3. She just turned 3 a couple of weeks ago. And just about everything, it's mine. It's mine. And then at one point she asked me something. She goes, "Is that mine, Grandma?" And I said, "Of course it's yours. Everything is yours, right? It's all about you." And that's okay at the age of 2 and going on 3. But if you let your parents provide for you and give you, and you know that it's not, you're not struggling, it's not just an okay survival, and you're like, "Yes, it's all about me." Yeah, it's not it's not an attractive look, but
yeah,
forget about how it looks. I also feel sorry for people who feel that way
yeah,
because it ends with them. I mean, the honest truth is that when I came down to the States, I could have not gotten into any of this stuff because I didn't need to necessarily. But I am driven by the same drive that you have. You know, sure, my children are raised and they're independent adults, and that's great. But what am I going to do now? I think about
yeah.
the following generation and other people. And we both have an incredible example with Abraham.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things we've talked about in other previous conversations is I'm of the belief that living this life morally is actually the thing that gets you further than the opposite direction. And this is a prime example. For example, like, let's say we wholeheartedly agree that thinking of others is our wise, right? Thinking of the future generations are before us. It's a lot easier to be content within yourself. Being like, this is enough. This is enough. Like, I'm happy with this. But I think the world rewards that and gives you a drive and the work ethic to be able to accomplish something when it's beyond you. I think it's easier to stop when it's just for you. And honestly, it's something that I needed
Yeah.
to instill a work ethic that is required to accomplish something, to the level of which an Abraham has, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true because, yeah, I do agree with that. And it's not an easy thing to find the balance, also, sometimes. It can be very overwhelming, which is why the people that you have around you make a huge difference and will help you get to where you want to be. And giving, being a giver, yeah, there are people who are takers. Absolutely. But I think, I believe in karma. Do you believe in karma?
Well, I don't think I believe in it in the way most people do.
Tell me how you believe in it, like what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think the universe has like certain rules in place that make that like for example, let's say karma was an example of karma would be let's say I stole something and then, eventually I get what I deserve because I stole something. Let's just say that was the case. I think what that actually is the stealing is unsustainable. And you've now taught yourself to steal over and over and over again. And the day that it does catch up with you, it's almost the universe showing you what you deserve the entire time. And so I just think it's the way that the universe pans out. I just think if you do something bad enough for a long enough period of time, eventually the world will show you.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. All right. So a few things I want to say to our speaker, to our guests, I should say. Nitin is on IG, so please search him out. Now, Nitin, your handle is a little bit different than your name, isn't it?
Yes, it's an extra I at the end of my last name.
Why? I mean,
They
not
didn't
the
have the one
letter Y,
without
but
it.
the question why.
Yeah, because they didn't have the handle without it. And I don't
It was
have a
already taken?
catchy. Yeah, it was already taken.
Okay. All right. So, guys, please do go and check out Nitin Daswani, the handle, an extra I, but the name without an extra
Yes,
I,
exactly.
and help him. He's got 3 posts up already, and he's got quite a reaction on that third one because that's where he announced, I'm going to be coming, I'm stepping out. I'm putting myself out there. Please go and follow him. trust me, you will be so proud of yourself because you're going to say, oh, yeah, this dude is just starting out. Look at this. And before you know what's going to happen, you'll have learned so much from Nitin. You'll be like, oh, man, yeah. And share his stuff, share his posts. I think that that is a very important thing to say and to request. I don't do enough of it for myself, but I don't really care about that myself. But for Nitin, I do. So please get out there and follow him, like his posts, and learn from him.
Thank you
And
so much, Effie.
are you kidding? And they can absolutely post what they would like to see because he's asked us. Go ahead, tell him what you want to see from him.
Absolutely. Before we end, I have to say one thing, Effie, and this is really just to the audience, and I'm breaking news to anybody. When I say the amount of care, time, effort, Effie, that you've given me, I make that post and the amount of attention I've received from you, the amount of like true, undivided willingness to help me. There's so many people in our circles and people that are around us, but you are so special and you make people feel so special, and your impact is beyond what you know, not only on me, but I know for everyone that knows you. Effie, thank you so much for what you do.
You're welcome.
Genuinely.
You're welcome. It was just a complete reaction. I was just
And that's what
hopping up
makes
and
it
down.
so
I was hopping
amazing.
up and down. I was like, okay, what are we gonna do? We gotta help him. We gotta give him the spotlight that he deserves. Because you just described a very incredible start and a journey that, is exceptional. And yet it's at the very beginning. That's why I'm excited for our viewers to let them know he's got 3 posts up there. And I feel more than giddy. I feel privileged. I feel so excited. And it's like seeing, the birth of a new celebrity, a new
Thank you.
teacher, someone that will pass on what you have gotten many times over. I can barely wait to see. Well, look, now I'm making a bold statement. I cannot die until you're 50. Oh my God, that's 25 more years. I can do it. I can do it. I'd love to see you at your 50th birthday to see the man that you will have become. I know that Abraham would feel the same way, your father, all these people. And it's just like that time period, even though it seems like a long time to you to say, oh, I'm 25, because I remember that. But that next 25 years, the number of people you're going to help, the number of people that you are going to teach and that you're going to learn from and that will help you and grow. It is the best thing about having a podcast is that you can help and affect people in a super great way. So thank you for the kind words, but it truly is my honor and you can't take it away. Anyways, that's it. No more. All right, everybody. Please do check out Nitin Daswani with 2 eyes with the @ symbol for IG, and get out there, make comments, do the thing, so he can do his thing. All right, everyone. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you.